But what happened was that music captured me completely. I heard a piece by an Italian composer, Fausto Romitelli. Unfortunately, he died far too young, but he wrote a piece called Seascape for this instrument. And that was the piece that captured me so strongly that I wanted to really get into this instrument and get to know it. When you take a look at it, it looks more like a square-shaped organ pipe with keys than a recorder. And in a way it is. It's quite a far relative to the recorder family, I would say. But of course, fingerings is the same, and sound production. But then there are many other things that are not so similar anymore. If you used a normal scale, what do you do with this instrument? It was built by a German recorder builder called Paetzold. Or was it Herbert Paetzold. Yeah. In the 70s, he started to develop this model, and his idea was to make a cheap, stable instrument that kids could use for playing concert music. And that's why he made these very, very big keys. You see, they are this big. And that is the reason that gives me a very comfortable fingering. So I have very small fingerings, which makes me more flexible. I don't have to struggle with this, that causes you some pain sometimes. And you're less flexible with playing fast and virtuosity. And that was because he thought it would be nicer for a small hand. So this instrument was perhaps a success in a way in music school for the purpose that he had when he started to build them. But amongst professional recorder players, I think the main idea was about with this instrument that perhaps not for Renaissance music. Then we have better options with with the copies from the original instruments. Suits the music better. But this instrument happens to have sound qualities that you cannot find in the cylindrical recorders. So let's use them and let's use it for that. And this is the contrabass. And he builds them or built, I should say, because he gave up actually, and others took it over. He builds them in 5 sizes. This is the middle size. So there are 2 smaller and 2 bigger. The biggest one I saw in Paris at IRCAM, this Center for Electronic Music. There was a demonstration of this instrument, and it just fitted in the room. Because I remember the ceiling in Salvars, the room was exactly the same measurement. So it's very, very big, and then it takes a lot of air, and it's not as flexible anymore as this one. So in my opinion, it becomes more a little bit freak show when you have such a big instrument. But of course, if you want to go for that, it's fine, you can use it for some things. The middle size is really nice because it's a bass instrument, you get the qualities of a bass, but on the other hand, it's still a flexible instrument. When I perform with this instrument, I always use amplification. Not because it's extremely soft, well, it depends what you compare with, but it's not a very loud instrument. But what you get when you put a microphone here, very close, a good microphone, and perhaps one here as well, is that you enlarge the sounds. and you get another quality of the sound, and you get a really rich spectrum of different sounds that you can work with. For example, now I don't have any amplification, but imagine to enlarge this kind of sound. Recorder players that was interested in contemporary music started to work with this instrument and find many different sounds. The composers, they were not late to be interested in this instrument, and pieces started to be developed and written. And some of them are actually very good pieces by really important composers, and the recorder repertoire, perhaps we don't have so many of the big names, but when it comes to the contemporary composers, but these instruments actually have some of them. And the very first pioneer of this instrument is a fantastic Italian recorder player that I strongly recommend you to listen to, and his name is Antonio Politano. Actually, I don't think he recorded too many CDs, but he's a very nice and great teacher in Lausanne, if you ever would be interested to go somewhere else these days. He is the one that developed the repertoire the most, and Seascape, for example, that I mentioned, was written for him. I will play a little bit. Now when you heard the instrument, how it sounds without amplification, I will show you how it can sound with amplification. And you can also have this score. This is one of the kind of scores that you, when you first see it, you're a bit like, oh, I don't know. It's just black and looks like it will take a long time. But it's also very beautiful, don't you agree? These Italians, they really know how to write beautiful handwriting.
Yeah, they look like Donatoni or something.
They
like
all
that.
have the same style. Yeah,
and the big score.
They have this tradition of writing beautiful by hand.
What about the PA system? What kind of requirements you have for those? If you go to a gig and somebody else organizes the PA system for you,
like now, for example, like tomorrow.
What do you tell the organizers?
Yeah, I will tell you a bit about that because.
Okay.
So I make a little break. I will soon play Seascape, but this is interesting because, of course, when you play with amplification, you give up some of your control, and this is not nice. Don't you agree? Because we want to control our instrument, of course, and in a normal situation we do, because we play the instrument. But as soon as I put up a microphone and put the cables in a mixer, and here's the PA system, and then there's someone else actually who makes my sound. So what I do is that I bring gifts for the sound engineer and become best friends with him or her. No, but one thing is that it's just to acknowledge that the sound engineer is really important. That helps the beginning of a good collaboration. And usually it's fine. And then I try to perhaps play some recordings for him to hear what we are looking for. But a live situation is never like a CD where you spent 200 hours in the mixing process, but it's sound check and it has to be done and it's alive. So at one point you have to give the control up and say, okay, you are my ears now, and you will make my instrument sound. But that's the backside, I would say, actually. But usually it's fine. Yeah. So this piece took some time to study, and but it was worth it. And what is really nice when if I would have just gotten the score, received the score, and someone would have said to me, please study this piece. Yes, perhaps motivation is a little bit less than when you already heard it. Now I knew it would be worth it. And that's what I like with studies taking place as masterclass. Because then you get to hear a lot of repertoire. And thinking of my studies in Amsterdam, for example, when I studied there, they played a lot of contemporary music in this class, and we were 30 recorder students. And every time there was a lesson, everyone could listen, so it was open. And then you get to hear a lot of repertoire, and you can hear that, okay, this piece is not so good, and that piece is fantastic, and perhaps this one could work. And you can choose what you want to spend 2 years studying, but 4 or 3 months. I think we are able to study almost anything within 3 months. And that's also good to decide that it's like that. Okay, I'll play you a little bit from Seascape. From the CD. This might be loud. Oh, very, very soft. And I think we had, in the studio we had 9 microphones. We went a bit bananas, but in the end I think we only used 4 of them actually. And there's no treatment of the sound except for a long reverb. Do you know what a reverb is? Add a room, a big room, so it sounds a little bit like you're in a church. And the reason it should be a reverb, well, it's the composer's wish, but what the reverb is doing is to merge sounds together. And actually it's interesting with this piece because the form, the build-up, it's quite a classical form. It's two climax points and starts soft, builds up to a climax, goes down, builds up again. But the sound material is not so traditional. It's more of noise and less of pitch. And I remember when I heard it the first time, I was astonished because I couldn't tell what happened. I just saw someone with this strange, odd-looking instrument, and I didn't see almost anything happening, but out came this strange sound. And now you hear it without amplification and without this reverb. So you recognize the sound, but it's smaller. And this technique later became one of Romitelli's trademarks. He calls it son de vento, the sound of the wind. And what you do is that you constantly leak the keys, so they're never completely closed, randomly, and you add an air stream that is very soft, and you form a sound behind your teeth, and then you can equalize like a mixer this sound like that, and it will come out in this sound of overblowed, because you also hear this overtones here in this noise. So I have I'm gonna add the sh. And with the air pressure, I get lower or higher notes. And this is a typical usage of a technique in this instrument, that you work in layers. You add layers on top of each other to achieve a technique. So here you have this, the motion of the fingers, and you have the and then you have the air pressure, and then you have this effect. And the piece also involves, in one way you can call it circular breathing, but it's not traditional circular breathing, but it's making use of the inhalation. So it's, you never take a breath like you would do normally, but you use the inhalation. And in the score it says in for inhale and